Hi, my name is Kate Morgan and I'm from a family business in East Yorkshire. As a family, we have always been highly driven by welfare, housing all our sows in large straw yards. Therefore, when Sainsbury's asked us to be their concept pig farm and trial out a new high welfare free-faring pen, we were only too happy. One, because it secured our supply chain, but also it meant that we could supply Freedom Food pigs from an indoor system, something that had never been done before. However, with this in mind, it only made me question, with the retailers pushing us down the higher welfare route, is this the right direction for the industry to go in, as it will inevitably push up the cost of production? The UK have relied heavily on having the highest welfare, and this has helped to justify our higher costs. However, the EU are now meant to be meeting our minimal standards, and so does this mean that our minimal standards should rise in order for us to justify our extra costs? The question to answer becomes, is this how it should be, the whole world having the same welfare standards and therefore similar costs of production? So, with my Nuffield Scholarship secured and a title of an examination into the high welfare practices within the pork industry, I decided to visit Denmark, Sweden, Brazil, China and America. A mixture of culture and attitudes, and boy, what a mixture I saw. The problem with welfare in the pig industry is that it is currently driven by perception. There have been very few scientific assessments to underpin the standards. If you look at the welfare standards within the UK and the EU, they're very much focused on the buildings and the systems which the animals are housed in, and very little on the day-to-day procedures. If I was to ask everybody in this room, don't worry, I'm not going to, but if I did, I'm 99% sure I would not get the same two answers as to what welfare is. Freedom Food use the term, a life worth living. Well, is a life where you can't turn around or display any of your natural behaviour a life worth living? In the UK, a nation of animal lovers, we don't believe it is, and this is what drives our welfare. In China, however, welfare to them is about giving the pigs a shower, singing to them, and only allowing women to collect the semen. A man collecting semen would never be seen. However, in America, it's about offering protection against elements, and this to them is welfare. The general consumer would say that welfare for a pig is a pig in a field, free to roam, and in the summer, who can disagree? But in the winter, we all know that that picture changes, and if the consumer saw the reality, would their perception be changed? I have to admit that before I set out on my Nuffield travels, I thought I knew exactly what high welfare was, and slatted buildings did not fit into this at all. But every country has them. Here in the UK, over half our pig population will be housed on slats, and in some countries, every pig will be in slats. This system does work, and it's relatively easy to manage. So do slats really mean low welfare? After visiting Brazil, my perception was well and truly changed. All their pigs are kept on slats, and I have to say the environment in the buildings was fantastic. The buildings were not particularly new, and they were very cheap to build, with simple layout. The open sides meant that you could walk through the building, come out, and you would not take the smell with you. It certainly helped on my clothes washing bill. The UK is the only country that puts pigs anywhere and everywhere, in all manners of systems. We just have too many different systems to rear and breed an animal, and so how can we explain these differences to the consumer? I bet if I was to ask you how a Freedom Food pig was reared, 50% of you would get it wrong, and you lot are a lot more passionate about pig farming, or farming as a whole, than most people. We basically have too many systems, too many tiers in the supermarket, which offers a diverse offering, and so how can we explain this? Every other country I visited only housed pigs in buildings that were specifically built for pigs, meaning that their cost of productions were fairly similar, as was their production figures, and the consumer was often only offered one standard of meat. Something that could be consistent through every country is the way in which we carry out the day-to-day procedures. such as the clipping teeth, tail docking, and the age in which we wean. This is something that could be done relatively easily and would not add much to the cost of production, but would instantly increase the welfare around the world. I see no reason why a piglet should have its tail docked and its teeth clipped after 1 day of age. I also feel that having a minimum requirement for space, feed and water, all of these factors would actually have a positive effect on growth rate and would save money in the long run. With the push towards the decrease in antibiotics around the world, we need to be thinking of ways in which we can house our animals which will make them healthier. The ways in which we carry out procedures can all help or hinder the health of our pigs, and therefore we must be looking at ways to make them more healthy. Currently, I think it's fair to say that the work on the welfare has been mostly focused on the south side of the industry, and very little has been done on the fattening side of it. This is very visible, even in Sweden, where they've been focused on welfare for the past 30 years. Their finishing sides lacked investment and really let them down. America really shocked me and actually quite upset me. We all know the Americans like to do things differently, but I never knew quite how different they could be. They currently have a very small market supplying pigs that have never been treated with antibiotics. Sounds great, hey? Well, in sparse pig-populated areas, then this can maybe be possible, as disease won't be blown in. However, the Americans are trying to do it in highly populated areas where disease is blown in every day. What makes it worse is that the farmer does not get paid for any pig that they treat, and therefore he often waits to see if the pig will recover on its own before treating it. Going into a building where the animals need urgent medical attention is not something that I'd wish to do again. One thing that stood out is that each and every country is thinking about welfare. It's fair to say, on the breeding side of the industry, Sweden have been leading the way since back in the 80s, when their government pushed them down the free farrowing route, something that no other country had even considered at this time. They basically killed their pig industry overnight. Anybody that knows a little bit about Sweden know that they like to lead the way, however, they are very poor at marketing. This meant that they were producing a very expensive, very high welfare product, but did not have a market for it, and therefore had to import meat from Denmark and Germany at a fraction of the cost. It shocked me as I hadn't expected it, but both Brazil and China were keyed up on the welfare aspects of pig farming and were adhering to meet the UK standards. The large companies were investing in loose sow housing, and they were trying to get information and training from us. It was pleasing to see that countries like these were looking into welfare, but I couldn't help but think why, when I saw the vast amounts of poverty in the country that I saw. I can understand that if they can import meat to the EU, then it will bring wealth to their country, but surely they need to start at home, looking after the people. There has to be something wrong with a pig having a happier, more healthy life than a human being. If we went back 100 years, no one cared about where their meat came from. It was all about the human surviving. But with an increase of wealth and a surplus of food, we've started to question how our food is produced. But as global population increases and the demand outweighs supply, will we go back to the surviving technique? At the end of the day, you can have all the state-of-the-art, top gear, but if you don't have the right manager, you might as well save your money. A manager who cares about welfare will work with what he has got, and he will create the best welfare for that situation. So, with this in mind, this picture could not show what I discovered any better. What you see on the outside is not always what you get on the inside. Don't get me wrong, the appearance of any farm is very important to give the right impression to the general public, but I've seen it all, from amazing units on the outside to very poorly run units on the inside, and vice versa. We do have minimum standards here in the UK, so why are we so scared to show them? Surely it is better for us to show the public what we're doing and why we're doing it, and what happens if we don't do it. Surely it's better for us to say, this is why we do it, and this will happen if we don't. We do not do things for fun. If I could get away without tail docking or teeth clipping, I would probably save one man's salary. It is our jobs as farmers to inspire and educate the next generation, not only as a future consumer, but also our future farmer employees. We need to attract intelligent, forward-thinking people to keep our future bright. There are so many tiers and so many prices and so many systems. If we are to keep these differences, then we must offer more explanations. I would like to finish my talk by thanking the people who have made all this possible. Most of the time, I was very grateful for this amazing opportunity. However, I have to admit, when I was sat staring at my computer and nothing seems to be happening, I wish I'd never heard of Nuffield. But on a serious note, thank you so much to BPEX, my sponsor, for this amazing opportunity, to Nuffield, John and Mike, plus all the others that have helped. But a special thank you to Anne Beckett and Louise Manning. I'm sure my name was maybe a swear word to you at times, but as I promised, I will see you in the bar later. Mum and Dad for letting me go away and have the time to study. Yes, Dad, I did say study, and I still believe that I am owed quite a few holidays. Finally, to my 2012 scholars, you are all legends and you are friends for life. Thank you.